Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome to episode one of Decentering Men Strategies. So, in my other Decentering Men series, I talk about reasons why you should decenter men, and I provide articles and other backup documentation to show the true nature of a lot of these men who try to convince you online that you're going to die alone. According to a lot of these articles and statistics, first of all, you're going to die alone anyway because women tend to have a longer lifespan than men. But also, I feel like it's important for us to start thinking about strategies as to how we can actually take action to decenter men. But I've noticed that women are doing this globally already because the first thing I've noticed is that we have a falling birth rate globally. It is to the point where people like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un are trying to incentivize women to have children. Vladimir Putin is even urging women to have 8 or more children. Also, Kim Jong Un, he is offering incentives like money, just straight up money, like thousands of dollars. They're also offering incentives like getting medical supplies and free housing. This is how desperate a lot of men are for women to birth their children. And I feel like the falling birth rate actually has to do with women realizing that becoming wives and mothers oftentimes ends up being a ripoff for her because most men are not protectors and providers and loyal and faithful and emotionally available and good at cooking and good at helping around the house. And he also looks good and he's also staying in shape, taking care of his health. Most men are not doing all of that. And certainly there are no men out there that are just perfect 24/7. So a lot of these women are beginning to wake up and realize that they are not benefiting from just randomly birthing men's babies or, getting married, having babies, and then being working mothers and then having to pay for the care of these children. And as a woman, your womb is such a powerful thing to the point where you literally can destroy countries by simply not birthing children. It's very important to a lot of political leaders for new children to be born because that's who their workforce is going to be. By the way, my next Decentering Men episode is going to be about how most men are actually not builders. Most men just build for other men. Most men just build for the men at the top. They're not actually building for themselves. But anyway, that's a different topic for a different day. So a lot of the actual men in power who are able to amass all of this wealth off of the labor of other men, they need women to birth these children so that they can continue having a labor force. They need men to, be the garbage men, and not just men, but they need women as well to work at all of these companies and to provide labor, provide cheap labor and stuff like that. But as a woman, you really don't know how much power you have if you make a decision to remain child free, or maybe you already have kids and you don't want any more kids. I'm not telling women what they should do with their body. If you do want to have kids, have them. But if you choose not to have kids, that is okay too. And I've noticed that a lot of men, they want women to have their babies so that they can slow the women down. A lot of men want a woman to become pregnant as a form of him humbling her because, now she's pregnant. She can't really go out and work out as hard. She's not as skinny, so she's not going to get as much male attention. And regardless of what people say, a pregnant woman's body does not attract as much attention as a woman with a flat stomach. I've never in my life heard a guy say, "Oh, I want a woman who looks pregnant. I want a woman whose stomach is as big as possible. That's what I want." No. So a lot of men, they want to impregnate women in order to humble them. They want to impregnate women in order to slow them down so that he has time to kind of catch up and get on her level. I see this dynamic with DDG and Halle Bailey. I also suspect this dynamic potentially with A$AP Rocky and Rihanna, and I've just seen this happen so many times where a woman will be at the top of her career or she will be quickly on the rise to success, and then a man will come along and he just wants to impregnate her as soon as possible so that even if she dumps him, he still gets the bragging rights of saying, "Oh yeah, Halle Bailey, that's my baby mama." And then especially if you are only that guy's baby mama and you never have any other kids with any other men, a lot of guys view that as a really big flex. Like, yeah, she didn't have any kids with any other guys, but I was the special one. I was the one that was able to impregnate her, and then she kept the baby. But I've noticed that even here in the United States, they have been making moves to try to ban abortion or to try to make it illegal. And I actually believe that a part of that could be because the birth rates could potentially decline a lot here in the US, and people don't want that. And so they're like, no, We want to ban you being able to get an abortion so that you have to birth those children so that they can be a part of the workforce. But as a woman, if you never really had a big desire to have children, you may want to consider being child free. I personally am child free for a lot of reasons. Number one, why would I want to bring an innocent child into this messed up world so that she can be assaulted if she's a young girl? She would end up being, catcalled, sexually assaulted, raped, molested, or one of those things. So I would never want to bring an innocent girl into the world to have that happen to her. If I were to ever birth a little boy, I would have to deal with him potentially being bullied by other boys or him being pressured to attain certain standards that are unrealistic, or me having to hope that he does not become a misogynist, which we live in a culture that is very patriarchal and very misogynistic. So that's one of the reasons that I don't want to have kids. Another reason is financial stability. It costs on average $250,000 to raise a child from age 0 to 18, and that does not include the cost of college. So, that statistic implies that if you do not have children or if you remain child free, you are saving an average of $250,000 over the course of 18 years. So, for all of the people who say, oh, you're going to be alone when you get older, it's like, okay, but if I didn't have a bunch of kids and I saved up $250,000 or millions of dollars in my retirement, I can hire people to take care of me if necessary. Or, I don't have this fear of dying alone. I've noticed that a lot of people, they like to project that onto you. So then they'll say, you need a husband or you're going to die alone. You need to have children or you're going to die alone. I do not have that fear because you cannot control your own death. That's number one. And number two, you're going to die alone either way. Nobody else is crossing over to the other side right next to you. So even if you were to technically die in the same room as someone else and they're all alive in that room, you're still the only one dying. So in my opinion, you are technically dying alone. Another reason why I chose to be child free is because I do not want to risk becoming a single parent. So, no shade to the single parents, but I'm actually not talking about baby mamas. I'm actually talking about widows. A lot of people, they do not think that their spouse could potentially pass away or that their person that they're raising the child with could pass away. I personally have known girls in my hometown who became widows in their 20s. Women who were married who became widows. So they technically are single mothers. So for me personally, I don't want to have to risk being a single mother. Another reason why I chose to be child free is because I love having my free time. When you are raising a baby, like when that baby's crying in the middle of the night, you're not getting as much sleep. You have to invest a lot more time and money just to kind of buy back your personal time. And I don't want to spend the next 18 years having to pay for a nanny or having to pay for a person to come in and babysit just so I can get a couple of hours to go to the gym. Or maybe I have to pay to go to a more expensive gym where they have like a daycare, but then I have to worry about the people at the daycare. Like, are they okay? I don't know who those people are. I don't know who those adults are in that daycare. I've heard of a lot of bad stories of things happening in daycares. So it just takes a lot of stress off of me personally when it comes to being child free. Also, I don't have to worry about arguing over parenting styles. So a lot of people who have children, even if they are married couples, they don't discuss every aspect of the parenting, and that's because it's impossible. There's no way that you can perfectly plan out how you are going to parent a child from age 0 to 18. You cannot predict what that child is going to do. You can't predict what's going to happen. So parenting arguments are inevitable, and arguments with your parents over how they are raising your child or how they are interacting with your child, those types of things are inevitable. And so that's another reason why I chose to be child free. Another reason is because I personally feel like it is impossible to raise children without hypocrisy. It's impossible to teach children right from wrong when they are going to witness you inevitably doing something wrong. And so for me personally, I know that I would get frustrated both with myself and with the child if I constantly had to explain my own hypocrisy. So for example, let's say I raise my kids in church or something, and then I tell them, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But then let's say somebody screws me over at work, and then like I ghost that job or something. Technically, if I owned a business, I wouldn't necessarily want someone to ghost me if they are my employee, but there have been cases where I have made a decision to screw someone else back over how they screwed me over, because in my mind, that was me taking my power back. But if you try to teach a child that, oftentimes the child is like not old enough to understand, or your own child may begin using those tactics on you. They may begin using those power moves on you. They may begin articulating themselves against you as the parent. I've seen this happen a lot. And actually, I used to do this when I was a teenager, where a lot of the adults who were Christians and stuff, they would tell me, don't have sex till you get married. Don't do this, don't do that. But then when I would say, oh, okay, well, then how come you have 5 kids and 3 baby daddies? Then they would get pissed at me and say I was talking back. I personally wouldn't want to have to raise a child like that, like, oh, you're talking back, or trying to almost silence the child for asking simple questions that are valid questions. Another reason why I am child free is because I like being able to invest more time, energy, effort, and money into myself. I like being able to grocery shop solely for myself. All of the money that I have to spend on clothes or whatever, it can go towards me. I don't have to worry about purchasing new clothing items every 2 or 3 months because my baby is growing up and all that. I don't have to worry about, oh, I can't go out walking in the snow because the baby might be too cold or the baby might cry. I don't have to accommodate or center my life or revolve my life around anyone else. By the way, this is not supposed to be like an offensive video towards people who do have children. This video is more so for the fence sitters or for the people who they don't really have enough information or they kind of haven't decided yet about kids. All I'm doing is I'm trying to provide you what my life is like as a child-free woman. I enjoy that I get to have my free time to do whatever I want. I can go hiking all the time. I can go on walks in the rain randomly. I can run half marathons randomly or go biking randomly. I don't have to try to hook up a little sack on my back or try to hook the baby up and then go biking worrying about if the baby's going to fall out, or I try to put the baby in a wagon on the back of the bike or something. I don't have to worry about that. Also, as far as the media that I take in, I get to watch whatever I want, listen to whatever music I want. So I feel like when you have a child, you kind of do have to censor what you watch or the type of music you listen to and stuff. Like if it has a ton of cursing or a ton of like suggestive content, then that can be bad for a child. I know that I wouldn't do that if I were like around a child. And so I do like that I have the freedom to listen to whatever controversial videos I want to. I can create whatever controversial videos I want to, and I don't have to worry about exposing a child to something that maybe they're not ready to learn about yet. Another reason that I chose to be child-free is because I genuinely feel happy, I feel complete, and I feel full in my life without having to include a child. So it's nothing against children. It's nothing against people who have children, but I just genuinely, I never had the desire for it really. Even when I was a little girl, I used to play with Barbie dolls. So Barbie dolls are like kind of the adult version of a woman. I didn't really play a lot with baby dolls. And whenever I did play with baby dolls, I would pretend that those baby dolls were adults. And I would play with baby dolls as if they were in college, or they were like writing books, or they were making music, or they were doing something that was more adult, I guess. So even from the time I was a little girl, when I imagined my ideal life, I never imagined it where it's like, oh, I have to have children to be a part of that life. Another reason that influenced me to become child-free is witnessing the women in my family and how they dealt with their children. So I come from a family where, on my mom's side in particular, most of the women have multiple children, going all the way back up to my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents. Some of these women had 12 kids. Some of the women had 8 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. But then there were others who just had 2 or 3. But I definitely noticed an increase in the stress level of the mothers versus the women in my family who had no kids. Because, for example, the women who had kids, let's say they were married with kids, the arguments that they would have with their husband would be more intense because they've got children in the mix. Also, I've noticed that women who had children in my family, whenever something unexpected would happen. So for example, COVID, when that happened, a lot of the mothers were just freaking out, extremely stressed out, because for me, as a child-free woman, I can go one day without eating. I can skip a meal. I can eat ramen noodles for 90 days if I ever had to. Like if anything really bad happened to me, I could eat ramen noodles, I could like go without, but to see your own child go without, I can see how that would cause a mother to become very stressed out and very depressed. I know that I would be very depressed and humiliated if I had to watch my baby cry because I can't give it food, or if I had to watch my children running around and like, they don't have anything to eat, or they're complaining about being hungry or how they only ate noodles that night. It would just be a constant reminder of my own failures. And so that would be very triggering and traumatizing for me. That's just me. I know that not every mother is like that. But the women that I witnessed in my family who were mothers, they definitely tended to be more stressed out about money, even if they had money, even if like they were married and like both parents were working good jobs and stuff, they still seemed more tight about money. They seemed a little bit more stressed out about money. They just did not come off as carefree. I never looked at a woman who had children and ever in my life have I ever said, I aspire to be like her. I mean, I genuinely have never said that. It doesn't matter who the woman is, not even like Beyonce or anybody. I've never looked at any woman or celebrity with children and said, wow, I really want to be like Rihanna. Wow, I really want to be like Beyonce. I aspire to be that. Nope. There have been moments where I have aspired to be other things, like maybe wanting to be wealthy or wanting to be educated or, maybe wanting to have a healthy social life. But I genuinely can say that I have never had a desire to, be someone's mother. Another thing that I have noticed that was very interesting is a lot of women who happen to have children tended to be some of the most jealous women of me, like in the workplace or even in like a church setting or a family setting. And I've noticed that a lot of women who are mothers, regardless of racial background, regardless of how wealthy they are, a lot of these women, whenever I would ask them, hey, do you ever regret having children? Or do you ever wish you waited longer to have children? Or do you ever is there anything you wish you would have done differently with your children? Every single time I've asked that question, every single woman has said yes. I wish that I would have had my baby with a different guy, or I wish that I would have had my child at a different time, or I wish that I would have had more money at the time that I had this child, or I wish I wouldn't have fed my child so much junk food. There are always regrets that I've noticed that are attached to having kids, and I don't do well with having a lot of regrets, especially regrets on another human being that I'm in charge of. I'm literally still figuring out myself. I'm still working on nurturing myself. I am building my own self-esteem. I am working on restoring my mental health and kind of restoring my own dreams, and I'm learning new things about myself every day. I do not have the ability or the emotional availability or the time and energy and effort to try to maintain another human being's self-esteem, trying to maintain a child's mental health, trying to explain everything to a child. Why is the sky blue? Why is the grass green? Why did you eat that cupcake? Like answering all of these questions 24/7. I've got my own questions inside of my heart that I want to answer for myself. And my personal goals in my life, it's going to take 24/7, 365 effort from myself. So I just prefer to give all of that extra energy to me, and I prefer to help other people in a different way. So for example, I have the energy to create a YouTube channel and to consistently upload on this YouTube channel every day, if not multiple times a day, because I don't have children. If I had children right now, this channel would not exist. This channel wouldn't exist. I'd be sitting in somebody's cubicle somewhere. I would not have the confidence to take as big of a risk because I wouldn't want to screw over an innocent child. So I've noticed that a lot of women who are mothers, no matter how wealthy they are, on average, a lot of the mothers that I've come across have had a tendency to not want to take as many risks financially because they don't want their child to suffer. And I know that I would be that way too. So that's why I just opted to not have children at all. I also have a couple of more shallow reasons why I don't want children. I enjoy having a flat stomach. I enjoy having a toned stomach. I enjoy my body kind of being more tight looking or whatever. And I don't want to have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on personal trainers or plastic surgery every time I have a child, to restore my stomach or make it tight again or get rid of loose skin or whatever. I enjoy the fact that my body is my own and that my body is not in this incubation state for a child. Again, no shade to women who have children. This video is just me describing some of the reasons that I enjoy being child-free. Another reason that I enjoy being child-free, I like to have peace and quiet a lot of times. So when I'm at home, I'm recording right now. I would not be able to record this with a crying baby in the background. I would have to revolve my schedule around a baby's nap time, which is very unpredictable. I wouldn't be able to predict when the baby's going to go to sleep, when the baby is awake, when the baby's going to cry, when the baby needs to be changed. And so having that much unpredictability in my schedule, I know that that would be a mental health trigger for me. That would definitely make my mental health go down because I like to have complete control over my own time. I don't want it to be to the point where it's like my newborn baby runs the house. My newborn baby runs my life now. So if I go into the grocery store and my baby's crying too much and starts screaming in the grocery store, now I have to leave the grocery store because the baby is crying. I don't want to have to spend the next few years or whatever dealing with those moments. And by the way, if you come into my comments section and you try to argue with me or try to convince me or others why we should have kids or why we're wrong, or you come in my comment section with hate regarding child-free women, you will be instantly banned from the channel. Because I've noticed that whenever you promote having children, nobody has a problem. But as soon as you start talking about the other side and, not having children or living a child-free lifestyle, suddenly people want to start getting triggered. Having children or not having children, it's not a competition. This is about just being able to make the best decision for you. So I'm not trying to shame women who have children, and so I ask that you do not try to shame me for not having children. Another reason that I enjoy being child-free is because a lot of these guys are not very good fathers. I mean, just being honest, a lot of guys are not very emotionally available for their children. And so it's like, okay, if I'm going to have children and there's like a 90% chance that they're going to have some trauma from their father, like why would I birth an innocent child into that? And also, how do you even vet a man to determine that he is going to be a perfect or a good father without having the baby? I mean, there's no way to really predict that. And so because of the unpredictability of men and because of kind of the volatility of most men's moods, like I said, lots of men, they're not even emotionally available to themselves. So how are they supposed to be emotionally available to a mother or to a son or daughter? So that's another reason that I chose to be child-free, because I don't have to worry about someone taking care of me because I just got out of the hospital and then like, oh crap, little Johnny, he's mad at daddy now because daddy didn't comfort him when he fell down at the soccer game. I don't have to think thoughts like that. Another reason that I chose to be child-free is because worrying about other people increases my anxiety. So if I had a baby, especially if I had a little girl, and I knew she was at a daycare, and I don't know who works in that daycare, I don't know what kind of little boys are there, or if she's in elementary school, I don't know what little boys go to elementary school. I myself was touched the wrong way when I was in elementary school by other elementary schoolers or the middle school boys or the high school boys. So I would have a lot of anxiety worrying about my young daughter potentially being assaulted or being, touched the wrong way or just bad things happening to my children. That would trigger my anxiety. It would just make my overall anxiety go up to the point where I would begin aging. I would probably have gray hairs and stuff. I would probably begin gaining weight from stress or just not being as peaceful and as carefree as I am now. So that's another reason why I chose to be child-free, is just eliminating all of that stress altogether. Also, for those of you who consider yourselves spiritual, I do come from a Christian background. I don't consider myself to be religious anymore, but in the case that your children are in heaven before they come to earth or whatever, you know how people believe that like before your children are born, they are with God or whatever. Okay, so then if that's the case, if my unborn children are with God, why would I bring them down to this ghetto ass earth? Just stay with God. Just stay in the perfect heaven, stay in the spiritual realm or whatever, and just live it up and just chill up there. Why would I bring you down to this horrible world where there's like all this racism or sexism and misogyny and corruption and capitalism that's going to like mess your child up financially and they're going to exploit you? Why would I bring that child down here? That's just from a spiritual perspective that I've thought about as well. Another reason that I chose to remain child-free is because I do not consider myself to be a sacrificial person. Not to the point where I'm willing to sacrifice my personal dreams, goals, mental health, sanity, financial stability, my future, my retirement, my emotional state. I'm not willing to risk all of those things, even for a child. So for that reason, I do not feel like I would be emotionally sacrificial enough for that child to, I guess, succeed. I feel like if I were to ever become a mother, it would be one of two things. Either I would be so self-neglectful that I would, put everything into the child, but then I would resent myself or feel like I regret that later on. Or it would be the opposite, where I would continue my YouTube channel, keep on doing stuff for myself, but that child would inevitably be neglected. Because, for example, I've been recording this now for almost 30 minutes. What if I had a crying child in the background that's just crying while I'm recording that? Or what if I had a child that felt emotionally neglected because of my career choices and stuff? So I just eliminated all of that dilemma by just choosing to be child free. I don't have a child that is depending on me. I don't have a child that I potentially am going to disappoint later on. So I don't have to deal with that guilt. That's another reason that I chose to remain child free. Mom guilt. I've never experienced it and never will, because I don't have a child that's depending on mommy to be there, depending on mommy to schedule her appointments, depending on mommy to make sure she's okay and all that stuff. I don't have that. And so that really is a weight off my shoulders, and I don't regret it for 1 minute. Also, with my living situation, I like to keep my apartment at least somewhat under my control. So I'm definitely not the cleanest person in the world. I can actually be pretty messy. But the thing about me is I know where all of my stuff is and where my mess is, and I get to clean on my own schedule. So, but if I had children, I feel like my apartment or my house would become just, it would look like a tornado hit, because it's like, okay, I already don't clean up every single day. Like, I don't clean up for an hour a day. Like, you know how you see those YouTube videos where they're cleaning for a long time? I already don't do that. So imagine if I had two little boys running around. My house would look like trash. I can handle being a maid for myself, but I already know that I don't want to spend the rest of my life being a maid for myself, a husband, some children. Oh, and also, I do feel like having children makes a woman more vulnerable to things like codependency. Because if you are a struggling single mom and then a guy comes in and he offers like money, or he offers to help raise the kids or to pick them up or to kind of take some of that domestic weight off of your shoulders, I really do feel like a lot of men take advantage of mothers because they feel like they're easier to get, they're easier to sleep with or whatever. And the mother, because she is so kind of overwhelmed or in over her head, I have seen a lot of mothers kind of fall for things more easily. And I really do feel like a lot of guys specifically target women with children because they know that as a woman with children, you may be more vulnerable, you may be more desperate for money, you may be more desperate for love, because if you have children, you can't just go on a dating app and date this weekend. You can't just go out to the bar next weekend with your friends, or go out to the bar every weekend, or go out to the bar 3 times a week or whatever, because you would have to find a babysitter or someone to watch your kids. And I feel like a lot of men in the dating world, they prey upon this. And I do think it makes those mothers more susceptible to potentially feeling lonely and things like that, because I do think that having kids affects your social life. And a lot of people will try to gaslight and say, you can hire a nanny, you can hire this. No, the average woman cannot afford to hire a full-time nanny, so let's not be delusional. The average woman can't afford a full-time nanny. The average woman can't afford a babysitter to come over every day. So therefore, her social life is going to begin to suffer. And I know that this video is, it's kind of a piercing truth, but I'd rather tell the young women who watch this channel, because I've got a lot of Gen Zers on this channel, I've got a lot of young ladies on this channel, I'd rather have them know what it's like from my perspective, like from a child-free perspective, rather than only allowing women with children and baby daddies or husbands to only give their side. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comments section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.